بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله فاطر السماوات والأرض وجاعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله لا نبي بعده. اللهم فصل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. فسبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وارزقنا فهما. And welcome back to our program, My American Jihad, with me, Imam Shamsi Ali. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about one of the possibly important issue in terms of our effort to deal with Islamophobia in the Western society. And truly, this is a part of our biggest jihad as Muslims here in America in particular, and in the Western society in general. In fact, in the world as a whole. The misunderstanding, misperception about Islam is so rooted and deep in the Western society. And because of those misunderstandings and misperceptions, many have become Islamophobic. They are scared of Islam without knowledge and understanding. And the definition of Islamophobia is fear of something irrationally. In other words, that many people are worried and fearful of Islam without any basis, without any rational backgrounds, without any rational grounds, simply because they are worried and scared and fearful of the faith. And one of the most important reasons is because they are ignorant and they are out of touch with the reality, with the faith. One of those misunderstandings is that Islam has been misperceived or perceived mistakenly as the source of violence, as a source of different types of mischiefs and miseries in humans' life. Looks like Islam is the source of inspirations of different violent attitude and attacks in different places of the world. Anywhere you have that bombings or killings, people will directly look into the faith, into the community. Oh, Islam is the source. I still remember in 2001, after the tragic event of terrorist attack here in New York City, the 9/11, the attack into the World Trade Center. It was deeply, deeply scary moment for some of us Muslims living in the city and in America in general. And how the televisions in general, including CNN, Fox News and others, present Islam as looks like really as the source of terrorism. And I still remember once one of the CNN anchor said that if you wanted to know the inspiration of this means terrorist attack, the inspirations of 9/11 tragic event, then read the Holy Quran. In other words, looks like Islam, but the Holy Quran is the source of that terrorism. And these notions, this understanding have been so prevailing in the minds of many. Islam also had been mistakenly perceived to be the source of conflict. So it looks like anywhere you find Islam, you will find conflict. And anywhere you find conflict, looks Islam's had been the basis. What happens in the Middle East, the conflict between two countries, brotherly in Islam and in race, they had conflicts. Looks like Islam is the source. Islam, unfortunately, had been accused as the source of many miseries in humans' life. Any violence, any ignorance, any discriminations against minority, discriminations against women, any poverty, anything is bad, looks like Islam is the point of accusation. Islam been victimized by those accusations. And so today I'm going to talk just one particular point about, does Islam really teach violence? Or in fact the opposite, that Islam is not only peace, but also Islam must be in the front line or frontliner to spread peace. And we can argue that both from religious sources, the Holy Quran and the Sunnah, as well as the jurisprudence, the fiqh of our scholars, where they talk about Islam, but also from historical standpoint. We would like to explain that. Does Islam really teach violence, or Islam is really the source of not only peace, but must be in the front line to establish what we call peacekeeping, peace building, in the language of the United Nations, building peace everywhere. And in fact, that's what Islam is all about. But before that, the question in mind is, why then many people misunderstand Islam? There are many answers to this. But I'd like to mention just 3 reasons why Islam had been deeply misunderstood by some, particularly in the Western society. Number 1, certainly media, there is no doubt about that. Media oftentimes sell sensational news. As it is said that if a dog is biting a man, it's not the news. The news is the opposite. A man is biting a dog. That could be a news. So anything is bad about Islam is going to be on the news. Someone once is accused, for example, wanted to bomb somewhere because he said something. He had some intention, and it's been followed by law enforcement. Then all of a sudden it's exported in the media. The whole world talk about Islam being the source of terrorism or violence. Media is being controlled by profits and money. And those who have money, they have the interest to keep and maintain the media in their hands. So it depends on how they wanted to sell. So media had been the source of this deep misunderstanding, including, of course, I'm talking about Hollywood. How many movies that basically talk about Islam and always present Islam as a source of terrorism? You can watch many movies out of Hollywood. How Islam had been perceived being as the source. Always, if there is something related to Islam, there must be some either extremism, radicalism, or terrorism. The second one is politicians. The politicians, because they wanted to play with the people's emotions and sentiments, oftentimes take Islam as a source. Because they feel that Islam is being hated or disliked, or many people misunderstand it. So they wanted to play that game as a part of that, game for them to gain interest, political interest. So they sell Islam as a means for them to gain political interest. And I still remember in 2010, when the Muslim community wanted to establish a mosque near Ground Zero, it's called Park 51. The media exploited that as a ground zero. They used the word ground zero mosque. Looks like they are framing that in the minds of the people that the mosque is being built on the ground zero. This is the way media frame it. But politicians took that, and particularly one of the politicians in New York State at that time wanted to be a governor, to run as a governor, and he used that as a campaign means that Muslims had come to conquer America, and now they are going to establish a mosque on the ground zero. So politicians are playing the game here. The issue of Sharia, for example, the word Sharia is so scarce in the minds of some Americans because the politicians are playing it. And sometimes you have that on the presidential debate even, talking about Islam, talking about Muslim, talking about Sharia. So politicians had been the source of Islamophobia at the same time. But of course, we have to acknowledge ourselves as Muslims, that oftentimes also Muslim had been a source of phobia itself. And the reason is because we fail to represent our faith and our religion to the people. And believe me, my brothers and sisters, dear viewers, that if 1.6 or 1.7 billion Muslims worldwide are successful in representing the true beautiful teaching of Islam, the true face of Islam, we are going to shake the world. Not by bombs, but by our behaviors and character as Muslims. How to be peaceful, how to be just, how to be tolerant, how to be equal to one another, how to embrace diversity, how to be partners with our friends around us. If we can just represent the beautiful face of Islam, I'm sure we can shake the world. I'm sure we can change the minds of many around us. We are competing with media. We are competing with CNN and Fox News, for example, on how to present our deen in the eyes of many. And our source as Muslims is not media, because we don't have media at the moment. We don't have ITV now, but it's being watched by Muslims. What we want to do is Muslims must be in the front line, not only to preach and talk about Islam, but to practice and show about Islam as a beautiful teaching. That's what sometimes had become a source of phobia or fear in the mind of some. Some brothers that become a Muslim in the past, they used to say, Alhamdulillah, that I have known Islam a long time before I know any Muslim. So we asked them, what do you mean? They said, because if I could have known Muslim before Islam, possibly I could have been confused what type of Muslim I would be after becoming a Muslim. Because they're confused about the attitude and character of some Muslims. Chaotic, social chaos in our society. Poverty, because mismanagement of the sources of the Islamic world. Ignorance, the law of literacy in the Muslim lands. Despite of the Holy Quran had come down for the first time, Iqra, read. But how many percent of the Muslims can read worldwide? And I'm not talking about big research or academic research. I'm talking about reading A, B, C or A, Ba, Ta in Arabic language. Many Muslims cannot even read. While the Holy Quran came down to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ for the first time to command them to read. My point here, brothers and sisters, when we talk about Islamophobia, and I'm going to talk in this coming episode, we must come back to ourselves first. Instead of blaming others, instead of building anger towards others, why we don't go to the mirror and see our faces? What we have done so far in representing our teaching, the beautiful teaching of Islam, the perfect teaching of the Holy Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because of that failure, on behalf of the Muslims, we have failed the minds of others. This is number 3. So coming back again, Islamophobia had been dominating the mind of some in the Western society. Alhamdulillah, we understand that despite of Islamophobia, despite of the sentiment of anti-Muslims carried by some in the Western society, Islam continues to progress. So for Islam and the Quran and the truth, there is no doubt it's going to progress. But the point is, are we becoming a part of that progress? Or in fact, the opposite. We have been an obstacle. We are becoming hijab between the truth, between al-Islam and the eyes of others around us. We are becoming barrier. People fail to see the beauty of Islam because of the mischaracter, the wrong character of some Muslims. So again, it is our responsibility to come back. If you want to change the minds of others, if you want to change the views of others about Islam, from misunderstanding to true understanding of Islam, from misperception to the right perception of Islam, then Muslims must be courageous enough and change themselves. Changing ourselves in the way we follow Islam. And one of that is not only emotional basis, not only sentimental, but more importantly is about being rational in our religiosity. So once again, it is sad to acknowledge that Islam has been deeply misunderstood and still misunderstood because of media, politicians. But I think more importantly, and I can say possibly more than 60%, Islamophobia happens because of the misrepresentation of Islam by the Muslims themselves. We are talking about the right of the woman, but sometimes we are male-dominant society that we don't give right to our sisters. And that is just simply because of the cultural view of the religion. We follow our culture more than our faith. So again, we are going to talk about these, how to tackle, how to change the minds of others in terms of towards our religion. And hopefully, inshallah, there will be some serious episodes about this in these coming days. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen us and guide us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open the minds of our friends around us so that they can see the beauty of Islam. And they can see the beauty of Islam through the beautiful akhlaq, the beautiful character of ours as Muslims. And this is one of the most important ours, American Jihad in America. May Allah guide us. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.